breathe in.
Okay.
We're
We'll
not
begin.
putting the kids on vacation next week.
Thank
so
you,
we-
Terry.
We better have them.
Thank you, Terry, for
in
getting that.
case In that state, they're making it wear. We've not been wearing them really.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to our second different type of planning and zoning meeting. Appreciate everybody that's here today and anyone that's viewing us. Welcome to the June 24th, 2020 meeting of the Danville County Planning and Zoning Commission. If you will, we begin in prayer. Our God and Father in heaven, we thank Thee for this most beautiful day and all the blessings of it. We thank Thee for this community we live in, this country we live in, the freedoms we enjoy, the safety and protection we enjoy. We continue to pray for our servicemen and women. You would protect them, bring them home as soon as possible. We pray for all those that are suffering from the COVID virus and other infirmities. You would comfort and heal them. We pray for our healthcare workers that are tending to all those that are sick, that you would bless them. We pray for our emergency people that are serving our community. We pray for our law enforcement. You would bless them in their decisions. They would make decisions that would be best for all. Pray for our president and other government leaders that they would make decisions to keep our country safe and healthy. Help us get back to a normal at some point in time. We pray today for the commission as we make decisions, those decisions be for the betterment of this community and all those involved. You would keep our community safe, and thank you for keeping us free from the virus. Continue to watch over and care for us. In Christ's name we pray, amen. Item C on the agenda is approval minutes, May 27th, 2020.
Motion to approve.
Jeff moves we approve.
Second.
Vince seconds. Question, discussion on the motion to approve minutes. Hearing none. All in favor? Vote unanimous. Item D, financial report.
That's in your packet, the May financial report. I'll be glad to answer any questions. There's nothing too unusual. We'll be adopting the final budget under new business, and we'll talk in more detail about the budget at the end of the fiscal year at that point. But again, I'll be glad to answer any questions about the financial report if anyone has any.
Generally, how do we stand financially, Steve, for the year?
Good, and I say that a lot, but you can see page 3, our balance statement, and our bank balance down there at the bottom of $126,943. At the beginning of 5/1, it's dropped slightly because of payroll and other things since then, but it's anticipated that we're actually going to have a 6-figure carryover to start the new fiscal year for the first time, at least in the 3 years I've been here. So our fees came in on target or above in most categories, and we're in pretty good shape moving into the new fiscal year.
Any other questions for Steve or regarding the financial report? Hearing none, do I have a motion?
I move we approve.
Terry moves we approve.
Second.
Jeff seconds. Question, discussion on the motion to approve. Hearing none, all in favor? Vote unanimous. I'm not gonna turn around everything, so if y'all vote
If I say no, I'll tell you.
Okay.
I'll throw something at you.
Thank you. All right, item E, construction sureties.
No update on those this month. Again, the city's working on those projects.
Okay. There's Dale. Is it okay if he comes in or not?
Sure.
We'll grab him, Terry, tell him to come in.
Out there.
He went to the right, Terry.
He might be dropping some
Okay.
stuff off, but
Maybe he's dropping something off then, yeah. I just saw Dale.
go out there.
I thought maybe he's coming from the east.
Stuff.
All right, so we don't need a motion there, do we, on construction? Item F, subdivision approvals. You're doing those, Lisa?
Yes, sir.
I'm sorry.
Chairman,
Yes.
I have
sorry.
been appointed to the Danville County Industrial Foundation,
Huh?
so there are a couple items of business that are coming up with the foundation, and I need to recuse myself,
Sure.
I'll leave, and someone will come get me after.
You don't have to leave, you can just recuse. You can just sit right there and just not, yeah.
Good.
Yeah, it's okay, isn't it, Henry?
It's okay,
Yeah, I thought so. Okay, subdivision approvals, item F, Lisa, please.
Okay. First off, we have the Boyle County Industrial Foundation. They've submitted a subdivision plat to divide tract 8A which is 17.820 acres from the other lands of the foundation. The property's fronting Corporate Drive, zoned IBD, surveyors AGE. The plat required minor technical corrections, and is ready for approval today.
Questions? Discussion?
Make a motion for approval.
Jeff moves we approve,
I'll second.
and Terry seconds. Question, discussion on the motion to approve. Hearing none, all in favor? Vote unanimous. Number 2, Edward and Aletha Southworth.
The Southworths have applied for a subdivision plat for a 6.76 acre tract in the Hunters Ridge subdivision at 0 Persimmon Knob Road, Junction City. It is basically adding a little bit of acreage to a tract they have already divided. The property is zoned ag. The plat required technical corrections ready for approval today.
Questions?
I move we approve.
Terry moves we approve,
Second.
and Jim seconds. Question, discussion on the motion to approve. Hearing none, all in favor? Vote unanimous. Number 3, Geraldine Jackson.
Geraldine Jackson Estate has applied for a subdivision plat to combine and redivide a 140-acre farm parcel into lots ranging in acreage from 10 to 63 acres, all lots fronting Chrisman Lane. The plat also clarifies ingress, egress easement over tracks D and E and a septic system and parking easement for track 4A. The property is zoned ag. Estes is the surveyor. The plat is ready for approval today.
Questions?
Jerry,
Yes.
Elmer has been out of town. He's come back in last night.
Uh-huh.
He will be at the office somewhere around 11 o'clock today to sign the plats and the application.
Okay. Just for my personal notes, where exactly is this? Just
The house,
their house?
the house tract.
Okay, just curious, yeah.
Well, that's all right.
Now, I know what.
That plat was originally done. The plat for that property was originally done in 1920. So we are, where she has passed away, we're selling the farm, and we're dividing the tract at the corner of Crispin Lane and 52 into 2 tracts, and the rest of it follows the boundary of the original property except for the house, which we're all conveying as a separate tract.
Are they selling it private or by auction, or do you know? Auction. Do you know when, by chance?
I have heard August, but I don't know if that
Okay.
date has been set yet.
Okay, appreciate that. I live there, that's why I'm asking these questions. Nancy,
I'm surprised you hadn't called before.
all right. Any other questions or discussion on the item 3 of Geraldine Jackson? Hearing none, need a motion.
I move we approve.
Jim moves we approve.
Second.
Jeff seconds. Question, discussion on the motion to approve. Hearing none, all in favor? Vote unanimous. Item 4, Geraldine Jackson.
Next, we have, on the Geraldine Jackson Estate, they've submitted a plat for the Westwood Hills subdivision. It's a retracement brought through as a courtesy. It's 41-plus acre parcel in 10 tracts, all fronting on Chrisman Lane. The property is zoned ag. Estes is the surveyor, and the plat's ready for approval.
Questions? Hearing none, we need a motion.
I make a motion.
Wendy makes a motion to approve. Vince seconds. Question, discussion on the motion to approve. Hearing none, all in favor? It's unanimous.
Here's the property across the road from the house.
Yes, okay, thank you. I saw the stakes, I figured it was what's going on. Item 5, Storage Rentals America Elite LLC.
Okay. Westridge Development Company, doing business as Storage Rentals of America, have submitted a final amendment number 3, section 1 plat for the consolidation of 5.944 acres at 185 Westridge. The property is zoned IBD. Vantage is the surveyor. The plat's technically correct and ready for approval. There's a site plan that'll be going along with, by the way.
I move we approve.
Terry moves we approve.
Second.
Jim seconds. Was that Jim or Jeff? Jeff seconds, I'm sorry. Question, discussion on the motion to approve. Hearing none, all in favor, vote unanimous. And item 6, Marshall Heel.
If you all could skip to the next page, this one was came in a little late, so it's out of order in your packets.
It's behind the site plans.
Yeah. Marshall Hill, Cynthia Merritt, and Jerry and Cheryl Harrison have submitted a subdivision plat to clarify their property lines on multiple existing improved tracts along Harrington Lake, totaling 1.021 acres, located at 2040, 2080, and 2088 Wells Landing Road. The property is zoned ag. Berry Land Surveying did the plat. It needed corrections. It also needs preliminary and final approval today.
Where are we with corrections?
They have made corrections and submitted
It's a
it.
separate page.
It's a separate page.
It's
Oh, okay,
disconnected.
that's what I was looking
It took me a while to find it too.
Say Barry surveying on it.
Berry survey, okay.
Have you found it, Steve?
No.
It's in this- Thank you, Henry.
And it'll just explain why it's preliminary. It came in just after tech review. This is a firm we haven't worked with. They brought the plat by later that day. I called our chairman of tech review, Terry, and then asked us, okay, we just put that on the agenda. This was somewhat time sensitive. And it would need preliminary and final approval. And it's just a lot line adjustment for 2 lots, as Lisa mentioned, where houses are hanging over and have hung over on the neighboring lots for several years.
Do we just need one motion for that, Steve?
I believe that
Yes.
works.
Okay.
I move we approve.
Jim moves we approve,
Second.
and Steve seconds. Question, discussion on the motion to approve. Hearing none, all in favor, vote unanimous. We through with those, Lisa, is that it?
Yes, sir, that's it.
All right. Item G, public hearing. You want to address that, Steve?
Yep, so the first one we have is the industrial foundation. And that one should be an AGE site plan, if you guys have that in your packet. So this is a site plan for a new tract that was created through the plats you just heard earlier, a 17-acre tract. This is for a spec building, with industrial foundation. It's gonna get the pad ready for, they're not gonna construct the building initially. So this is a site plan to construct a 101,250 square foot spec building. Shows 192 parking spaces. Parking's based on maximum employees per shift. And at this point, there's not a fine, and they're not gonna construct the building initially. This is just get everything in place, so if they get a client, they can actively go to the zoning permit phase to construct the building. The parking might change if the employee count, for example, was 200 or 210, they'd have to have that many spaces. Or if it was 185, for example, the parking is reflected. But by coming forward with the site plan, it's showing 192 and 101,000 square feet. If they were to exceed those numbers, they'd have to come back and amend the site plan. But I think that the plan is that the building would probably be smaller, and the parking footprint would probably be a little bit smaller. We had several notes on here related to the parking, landscape plan, possibly a traffic study, because we require traffic studies at the 50,000 square foot mark. Our comment was to address the traffic study or get a and they were okay with waiving the traffic study at this point and addressing all those issues at the zoning permit phase.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, sir.
So they're gonna put a pad in, so I'm assuming, it's gonna be footers, it's gonna be, they're gonna have to get a permit, they're gonna have to get inspections, correct?
So what's interesting is when they said they're gonna prepare a pad, they did not clarify if they're actually putting concrete down or if they're just gonna get the site ready from a grading standpoint and drainage.
Okay,
If they were just, putting a concrete slab down or footers, that doesn't trigger a zoning permit for us, but would require the state approval, through the permitting process for a site prep but they did not clarify if they're actually putting the concrete down initially or not, or just prepping the site for grading purposes. The zoning permit for us would be triggered by the actual construction of the building part. They just wanted to have everything in place, so
so
they.
footer doesn't trigger a zoning permit?
Not a.
And how come you have to have them inspected?
If the state would be, that'd be the state's role on their permit, or local, if it was Rusty's role under the permit. If you're just wanting to put a footer or slab in, our zoning permits are initiated by actual physical construction of a structure.
My own question is, I know building permits have a lifeline, have a life.
Yeah.
So my question was if they, how do you address that? If they have to get a permit and then, but if, obviously,
guess
that's
this would
not gonna be an issue.
No, my guess is this would be state jurisdiction, so, and that's another interesting way to approach this. It takes a lot longer to get your state permits than it does here to get a local zoning permit. So they could go ahead and initiate that process with the state in the various phases they have for permitting, footer foundation only, if that's where they're going to get that started. And then when they're ready to build the building, the zoning permit would be what we would issue locally. The goal here is to cut off this 17-acre tract, get a pad site ready to go. As you know, some communities build full spec buildings ready to move in and fill out the shell. They're not going to that level, but they want to make sure they know where their client is and what their exact needs would be at that point in time. It may only be a 60,000 square foot building, but by getting the site plan approved, you guys have approved a footprint not to exceed, so they could have this step already worked out in the process as they approach clients. All the corrections, we did get a landscape plan, it's not in front of you. And the proper notes, there's covenants on these lots in the industrial park. And one of our notes was to put references to those covenants. It's just helpful for whoever's looking at the plat or the site plan. And we do have the corrections back. I actually have the corrected plat right here in my book. So they made all the corrections except addressing the traffic study and access-related issues, which they, Earl Coffey said they could do at the zoning permit level.
Okay. Well, with all the issues that need to be addressed, I'll make a motion for approval.
Jeff moves we approve. Vince seconds. Question, discussion. Steve, I have one.
Yes, sir.
Why is the state involved with this?
So when you get ready to build, you need a zoning permit from the planning commission.
Right.
You need a building permit. Our building inspector, Rusty Cox, only has jurisdiction over certain type of construction.
Okay,
So for example, some restaurants he does, and others has to go through state plan review.
okay.
So this would be a state building permit that you have to get, because of the size of the building, the
Okay.
occupancy of the building,
That's,
and some of the mechanical,
Okay.
parts of that.
that's what I was, yeah,
Yeah, go
I,
through Frankfurt, get
yeah.
your permit, and it may take a month, it could take 6 months sometimes.
I didn't remember us having that issue before, even when we may have. I just didn't remember, and I was
When
wondering about
everything
that.
stays here local with building and zoning, it goes a lot quicker.
Yeah.
But when it goes to the state, it takes
Okay.
some time, each permit's through. But they let you hybrid the permit, break it into phases differently than you do locally. It's the
Okay.
same thing.
Thank you. Any other question or discussion on the motion to approve? Hearing none, all in favor? Vote unanimous.
Mr. Griffin?
Oh, I'm sorry. I gotta go back up on that. Yes, Henry, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to ask if we could state recusal for the record. Is this one of the items that you were recusing from? Okay, thank you.
Also, do I need to open the floor for public input, even though how do I do that? Being a public hearing?
Has not been any public input from the audience today. Have you been receiving any commentary? Okay. This, site development plans are not technically matters for public hearings. So this
Okay.
is, it's not something that needs to be considered, it just needs planning commission approval.
Okay, well, we had, Steve had listed in public,
Right.
public
Well, and
hearings.
I'll tell you why. It's-
So I didn't
it's a
know-
good point. Site plans are technical reviews that go through tech review and a checklist, but unfortunately, they have to be advertised locally as a public hearing, because it's required in our book to advertise. Or we chose to do that, we don't have to do that. So technically, this was advertised in the paper as a public hearing. The site plans kind of go that route. They don't have to, but our book requires that, and always have. We've always made site plans a public hearing, zone changes, little amendments. But they do feel and flow through our review like plats, but in our zoning ordinance historically, they've always been public hearings.
Is that something we may address?
We could make site plans, really the difference is we're advertising those in the paper under KRS 424, and that is optional.
Right.
Correct.
As for involving public hearing right now, it's not necessary.
Okay, that's what I, yeah.
Well, that would, I mean,
We'd have to
there's
make
obviously
zoning
a cost value every time you have to advertise in the paper, if it's not necessary.
Pros and cons on that would be real quick is site plans are bigger developments than just plating issues. And to advertise those does give the public some notice that, we're building something larger than normal. A bigger factory. If we had 200 apartments coming into town, those things by going through the site plan and us advertising those, put the public on notice that they typically wouldn't see the plats. But it does cost us substantially to advertise for all these public things.
So we have a motion, a second, and we have a vote, and it's unanimous to approve, if I'm
It's
correct.
not unanimous.
It wasn't? That's right, that
We
one
were
recused.
recused.
I'm sorry. Get them straight in a minute, maybe. Thank you
He's
all.
not here.
All right, we do have it approved, right? All right. Item 2, Storage Rentals of America.
Yep, another site plan. This is actually, we're treating this like a site plan amendment. As you guys know or may not know, that we have a storage building facility off the bypass. I think everyone knows where this facility is. Kendall's here. This is his site plan amendment. And basically, you've already heard Lisa report that we've added a piece of land to this property that was adjacent and consolidated this lot. And as you can see, there's 3 new buildings being proposed, storage buildings to be placed on the property with the existing buildings and tie with the existing facility. Our notes were pretty simple, and Kendall will address those. Our requirements in the revised zoning ordinance is storage buildings are supposed to have an opaque fence. No longer do we allow just plain chain link fence. They have to either be landscape screened or board on board or slats in the fence or something of that nature. And then the travel way widths as shown here are, a couple of them are a little narrower than a 2-way travel, so we're gonna have to, we can designate that as 1-way travel ways when the facility's built. So we need at least 20 foot to have 2-way travel ways, and a couple of these are slightly smaller. And the way you fix that is the developer will just have to designate that these are 1-way travel ways.
Is
And
that
they-
part of the approval process?
Yeah, our notes are over there. You can see on here, we put on here about the fencing, the landscaping, and then the travel ways. And Kendall's here. We sent those comments to him, and he said he would get those back to the property owner. And they show some landscaping on the front perimeter along the cul-de-sac, but we'll have to either have solid fence or fence landscape combination along those outer edges right there. And they have some natural buffering in some of that general area too. As far as the buildings go, the placement of the building, travel ways, everything looks good, meets our requirements. Drainage, all those issues are spot on. And Kendall's here if you guys have any questions.
Kendall, you don't see an issue with those other
No,
requests? Okay.
no, there's, the fencing, well, we have sign shop and Minuteman Press. Minuteman Press still there?
Yeah.
They're one of our neighbors, and the other neighbor is, well, undeveloped land, farmland, but I guess it's, putting up fences up, I guess, to protect something in the future, maybe, I don't know.
That's what's gonna be, I think we'll work with them at the zoning permit styles of fence, that's not what we really probably want to do. I would anticipate they do something similar to the fencing they have, and do some kind of landscape to supplement that. But in the future, the new zoning ordinance requires storage building units to have solid fencing and or landscaping around the perimeter sides.
Thanks.
Anything else, Kendall, you want to?
No,
Okay,
we can address all of it.
okay, thank you.
I make a motion for approval with the recommendations from staff.
Jeff moves we approve with recommendations from the staff,
Second.
and Terry seconds. Question, discussion on the motion to approve? Hearing none, all in favor? Vote's unanimous. You did vote on this one, Steve, right? Okay. Item 3, Danville Boyle County Planning and Zoning Commission filed application to amend Article 5 of the Boyle County Joint Zoning Ordinance.
Okay, let's talk about this briefly, and then I'll tell you what we're gonna recommend. This is a public hearing, and what we're doing is introducing this document.
Kendall,
um,
go ahead.
Okay.
Go ahead.
We're introducing this document to you all to consider, and the staff is gonna request we take no action today, that we table this item, simply because we do not have the ability to have the public in the room. This text amendment, as you guys know, we talked about this briefly. This text amendment to Article 5 would be amending the zoning ordinance to allow distilled spirit storage, or rick houses, as we all know them, in the agricultural zone with a conditional use permit. So currently, if you want to build a rick house or build a full distillery, you have to be zoned industrial. That's been the process we've used in this community. That's what's out on Lebanon Road, everything's zoned IBD or industrial business development. There's been a request from the Distillers Association, EDP was involved in that slightly, that we amend our zoning ordinance to allow this agricultural use option. And our advisory committee met on this in January, way on back briefly, talked about it, and there is a Nelson County ordinance. Nelson County does this in a little different fashion, and it was requested that we should be allowed to do in Boyle County here what Nelson County does. The advisory committee reviewed that and decided, this is a pretty big change, and we prefer to have the parent governments, the city and the county, give us a directive, because this is really where they wanted to go. The county met on it twice, and at the first debate, decided probably not, but then after reconsidering, decided to direct the planning commission to initiate this public hearing. So we're doing this on behalf of the fiscal court only. This is not a city directive. This would be a fiscal court recommendation if it was successful. When this topic came up, it definitely got the interest of the public, for sure. Most of the reasons have to do with Wilderness's proposal and the fact they own a specific parcel of land that have neighbors around it and other interests about that property. This proposal would make this county-wide. So we're putting, if possible, this is successful, rules into play that mean these rick houses could go anywhere in Boyle County. But there is one tract of land where this is really the targeted area initially if this is successful. So there are people that are interested on both sides of this that want to speak to you guys. So I think today the plan was, and Henry and I talked about it, was to give you a quick overview of what's in the text amendment, have whatever discussion you all want, or have Henry tie in with some corrections because there's some typos in here. We did this pretty quick, but table this at the end so then we can come back next month. Everyone can have this, study on it, the public can have it, and you guys could have a hopefully less than 50 group. We might have to find another room to meet in next month, but there's clearly several people that want to talk to you guys about their feelings on both sides of this issue. And then once you guys take some action up or down, at some point, it's going to fiscal court for them to ultimately decide whether or not this goes in our revised zoning ordinance. So the challenge we had is to take the Nelson County model and figure out how it fits in our new book. So I'll just walk you through it real quick. It's real simple. Tell you what's in it.
I don't have a copy
You
of
don't have the text amendment? I've got one right here.
it. I'll get it.
So the first page you're gonna see is that 5-page form. Open it up. This is our chart that we put in play. So So we had to find a place for the chart. And it's interesting to note, you see it in red, it's still under the industrial uses, because it is an industrial use to have a distillery, visitation center, combination. So this whole issue is about when the rick houses are separate on a tract of land, we allow them to be an agricultural zone. It still fits in our book as an industrial use, and all we do, like other uses, for example, if you look at waste-related uses, we have other industrial uses that we allow them to be in various zones, including the agricultural zone. So we just put the line in there, craft brewery or distilled spirit production and storage. That's on page 536. And as you can see, it would be proposed as a conditional use with rules in the ag district and of course permitted in industrial zones. So then when you flip the page, we're getting to the section where we just talk about this item. We had to do a little housekeeping on 536, and if you turn to 537, pages, numbers are at the bottom. This is the standard that we're putting forward in Boyle County. In H, and I'll just summarize most of this, H talks about distilled spirit storage. We added craft beverage, because in our book, everything was tied together for craft breweries. We have farm wineries, we have distilled spirits. The request was we just want to deal with rick houses for distilled spirits, but we put craft brewery because, they're doing a different product that would be similar in nature, and this is just the storage element only. We put in here you have to be on at least 20-acre tracts. Nelson County had two different models in their ordinance. You had to be on a 100-acre tract, but you didn't even have to get a conditional use permit. You could just move in and build the building. Or if you're on less than 100 acres, you had to get a conditional use. We're not doing a 100-acre or permitted by right approach here. You need a conditional use first, which means before you can do this, you have to go to the Board of Adjustments and get their approval. So we're saying that we potentially would allow these rick houses in an ag zone on a tract of 20 acres or greater, but you gotta go to the Board of Adjustments first. So that first paragraph talks about generally that two, I'll skip number 1 there, it says you need CP. 2 talks, and this came right out of Nelson County, the portion of the property to be developed shall not be located within a floodplain or naturally sensitive area. Henry pointed out, we don't really know what naturally sensitive area is, but it's an interesting term that they're using in Nelson County because it gives the Board of Adjustments some flexibility to consider some things. If I have an above-ground pool behind my house, is that a natural? Probably not. But maybe there is a wetland area or some other natural thing in the general area that the board should consider, as opposed to, I got 20 acres and I want to put it right on the property.
There's a lot of things that go along with that, like they did at the airport. They had to spend a lot of money to satisfy, there was a owl or something.
Those are issues.
So when we think about it, we have to think about what are the ramifications of putting it in there, because it's going to incur a tremendous amount of expense for any business that plans to make those studies, because they're the ones that have to pay for it, not the city or the county. So it would deter some people possibly from using the property.
I think one area, if we go out, if we're zoned industrial in the city, you guys are zoning property, you guys are looking at this in a different light. We're looking at all over the county with elevations and grade and drainage unique features. To go out and put big buildings in this proposal, this first proposal on Mr. Baker's property shows approximately about 600,000 square foot of building in various rick houses scattered along a very large farm, probably one rick house per 10 acres, let's say, in that range. I think the placement of those buildings are issues that we want to look at floodplain. We definitely don't want any buildings in the floodplain or adjacent to floodplains, especially if there could be a spill or something of that nature. And in these natural sensitive areas, who knows what all those would be. But that gives the Board of Adjustments the ability to talk about it, public to come in and raise those concerns site by site by site, and address those at the meeting. If it's too vague, we talked about maybe it should come out.
And we discussed that. I don't think that it is too vague. I think it's not unusual for Board of Adjustment criteria to kind of point things to their attention, but not necessarily pin anything so that they have to approve or deny based on something. Leaving it in there lets them think this is something they should focus on, but they don't have to deny on that basis. And I think it's not so vague that it's inconsistent with the statute's criteria for conditional use permits. So I think it'll stand up.
So turning the page, and 3 and 4 are new items that I drafted. And I'll tell you why they're not in the Nelson County ordinance. 3 deals with roads. So when I heard this proposal and heard that, hey, we could put rick houses potentially all over the county, you know, we need to hear the evidence on both sides. First thing I thought about are different county roads. You know, we've had one road here in the county that's probably 10 or 12 foot wide that we've had concerns about just homes being built on. To think that we're put a rick house and have truck traffic and what goes with the rick house on a 10 or 12 foot wide road would be a concern, I think, from a planning standpoint. So we put a standard in here on number 3 that basically says, gonna have to at least be on an 18-foot wide road. It says minor collector. Henry pointed out, we use the word collector more consistently in our subregs. It has to be on at least a collector street, which means that's a street that's getting between 2 other roadways, not a dead-end road. And there has to be at least 3-foot shoulders on that road. So we're putting a minimum road requirement for these parcels. So again, we don't know where all these properties could be, but wherever they are, if you're gonna do this style of development, you're gonna be at least on an 18-foot wide road. 18-foot or 2 9-foot lanes typically has a stripe on it. If they're less than that, they're normally not striped. And having shoulders, if we're gonna have truck traffic and those kind of things, we think we should be on at least a minimum road size. This was not in the Nelson County ordinance, but we put it in ours. We've already floated this by the various groups that asked us to do this, and no one had any problem with this paragraph. The shoulders are a should, the road width is kind of a must. So that's just a standard. Again, the Board of Adjustments has some just discretion there. Still could be a road that's not suitable, even though it's 18-foot wide, due to grade or curves or site distance, access, all those things. 4 deals with fire protection. Let me tell you what Nelson County had was very simple. It just said all the buildings had to be sprinkled. That's all it said.
Let me ask you, on number 3, I'll go back to it. Does that impact the current brick houses with Lebanon Road?
No, they're all technically on a specific parcel off Lebanon Road. Lebanon
Right.
meets that standard.
Okay, so these requirements don't apply to anything else other than what.
Those are industrial.
This would just be this ag
Right.
only. If they're ever zoning and going in, you guys are always looking at that, and we're probably gonna see a traffic study. So if someone went the other route and said, look, I'm not gonna do the ag CUP in this pass, I'll just zone it industrial. It's coming to you guys, and you guys are always looking at roads and access. What's interesting is if the CUP is successful, they still have to get a site plan approval and come back to you guys too. That's what confused us about the proposals, like, wow, go the ag route versus owning it. I mean, you gotta go to the planning commission anyhow, come one time and do zoning and site plan. This way, you're gonna have to go to the Board of Adjustments, you know, go through a hearing, and then come back to P&Z the next month or the same month, I guess. But this is what the industry wants across the state of Kentucky. They feel that all these different communities have different zoning rules, industrial here, commercial there, ag in another county, some county with no rules. And their biggest issue is we got property all over this county that would be suitable to brick house storage. And trying to stay on the perimeter of Danville or zone industrial, it's gonna be harder to find these 100-acre tracts or 50-acre tracts to do that kind of industrial storage. So, going to number 4, going back to the Nelson County had the word sprinklers in it. Our local folks didn't want that in the ordinance. They're of the opinion that if a rick house hopefully doesn't catches on fire, you just stand there and watch it, I guess. Get your cell phone out, take some pictures. It's not gonna do much, but Nelson County required a sprinkler requirement. And what's interesting, sprinklers are great, and it's an easy standard to put in the book, but if you don't have pressure and gallons per minute, what good are sprinklers? We do not require, and nor are our brick houses out here sprinkled. The state building code says they have to be 200 foot apart. That is the fire protection. they're apart from each other. So they weren't real keen on this fire protection paragraph, but us looking at it was, if we're gonna go all over the county, maybe there is a 100-acre tract, but there's a good chance there might be a 1-acre tract right next door with a house on it. There could be a grass fire. Why wouldn't we want some kind of fire protection to these sites? So what we came up with was a hybrid, and I ran it by the Danville Fire Chief, and I have not met with the county fire chief yet. But what we're basically saying is you gotta have fire protection to the site by way of gallons per minute and pressure and hydrants. And if you choose to sprinkle, great. And then we give them in lieu of options, these NFPA options down here. 13 is sprinklers, 750 is a mister system, and 1142 is a dry hydrant. Where if you have a pond on the property, you could put a standpipe and the volunteer fire department could get there and at least have a water source on the property to, I guess, do some fire control. So what we're saying is 600 gallons a minute if you're within Danville's jurisdiction, 300 gallons a minute if you're in the county, or you've got the in lieu of options for fire protection. We use 600 and 300 for a reason. A 600 gallons a minute is a 6-inch line typically, and the hydrants would have a red top, which the city fire department says is of the standard pressure-wise to fight a fire. 300 in the county is probably shooting really high, but that's at least a 4-inch water line. What we don't want to see is we put a requirement in here and they just run a 2-inch water line to the site, which isn't going to do anything. Now again, the industry is going to tell you, I think when they get here and testify, there's no protective. This is not needed because, again, if there's a fire, and there's a good chance there won't be, is what they're going to say. There's lightning rods and different construction techniques, and the building code just says they have to be 200 foot apart. What we're concerned about is the perimeter, and if we're going to put these on big farms and there's still hay production or something, a spill or a fire, maybe we can't contain it, but we ought to have something on the property, at least to have a water source. So that's a different style of fire protection just than saying sprinkle. And the fire chief looked at it yesterday, Danville, said he had no problem with it. More likely we're gonna be in the county and it's gonna be the volunteer department who would be responding, or maybe they would both jointly respond if it's on the perimeter.
Is it practical in the county though to expect this type of gallons per minute to be available out?
Well, we're gonna make them provide it. I mean, if they
How do you do that?
build it.
Well, yeah, but it says gallons per minute, but for how many minutes?
Well, there's a fire flow, it's gallons per, it'd be 300 gallons per minute.
For how long? For how many minutes?
Well, the duration of the fire, the
I mean,
fire.
if they say we're gonna put a tank in, a storage tank in or something.
Well, again, I think the dry hydrant, if you have live water, it should sustain it for as long as you need it, whether out there 12 hours or 20 hours. The 1142, if you put a stand of water, I've seen some cities, swimming pools will meet this. You could have you have a source of water,
Mhm.
and then in that 1142, it has a duration based on the fire. So if it was a 3-hour fire, 3-hour flow, you can kind of do the math. What you're putting is a volume of water to fight a fire over a certain duration. If you get to these NFPA standards for sprinklers, misters, or standard water, they put there's formulas in there on the duration of the fire that you're trying to fight.
Aren't you really just looking for something to prevent it spreading rather than putting it out? Because they don't care if it burns or not.
And that's what we're trying to do, but we're also trying to, but again, to put no water to the property.
No, really, are you saying is we're gonna make sure it doesn't spread?
That's right, we're gonna protect.
With a
your
fire
property.
break or something, is there some less costly way to make a fire break versus water? You're not wanting to put out the fire.
Well, but like, I won't speak of specific sites, but the site we may be looking at has a house right next door. And the way the property sold, that there's a house right in the center of it that didn't sell, part of the sale. So we got homes across the street. So yeah, we're trying to protect, I think, property
Right.
on the fringe. But since we are leaving these in an ag development area, and we're supposed to stay in ag production, it's very feasible, there could be hay production. I mean, we could have a,
Right, and I was
200
gonna say,
acre grass
are we
fire,
really looking
yeah.
for keeping it from spreading?
right.
Is there a less costly way to prevent, or to make fire breaks around the brick houses or something?
Stephen.
I'm asking a question, I don't know.
I think that's the kind of discussion we need to have when industry folks come in here, when we talk to them. What they would like to see is just
Yeah.
just follow whatever the state building code requires, which right now is 200 feet. And then if you build a bigger structure, they are required to be sprinkled, and there's other amenities have to be put in if they go over 40,000 square foot footprint. Go ahead.
I wanted to jump in. Oh,
I didn't have any.
okay. It seems to me that what Mr. Griffin is suggesting could be approved under the current verbiage because this alternate fire protection plan part. Is that what we're wanting to do and let them just?
Yeah, they're gonna have to submit something to the Board of Adjusters. They have to come in here and either show us how they're gonna put water to the site, or do one of these in lieu of, or get with the fire chief and work out what the plan is, but just not to have any fire protection on the site. Again, if we're around the fringe of Danville, more urban fire department, we develop these, Danville's responding, but we're talking about putting these anywhere in the county. It could be several minutes away or miles away from the volunteer fire department. I think the goal here is to be responsible in fire protection and access the best we can.
This is my only thought. We have to be careful, because Kentucky has a maxi-mini code, building code. And we can't make the building code any stricter than it is.
The
Or
building
any
code
less strict.
doesn't require the gallons per minute. It requires spacing requirements and some ditching options, but I think what's interesting here is that standard's not in the building code on gallons per minute. A lot of communities have fire protection standards of this style. They say these are our rules for fire protection, and they usually don't run afoul of the state building code. But you're correct, if we did, we have to follow the state building code. And that's what they're saying is, hey, as long as they're 200 foot apart, is what they are out here, that's fire protection in the state building code. It's just the spacing only. So in a sense, we are adding more levels of requirements, but I don't think it runs afoul of the state building code, because there's just a spacing requirement. So the fire can't jump, I guess, building to building. Yeah.
Does the city have many 20-acre sites? I mean, 20 acres is
Well, this
pretty
is only
big
gonna be in
lot.
the county. At this point, the city did not give us a directive that they want this in their book. So this is just gonna be an unincorporated Boyle County only.
Steve, with regard to that, is that 20 acres limited in the sense of one building, two buildings, or
No, we could do that.
any number of buildings? Is there a limit
No.
other than the distance of?
Well, when you get to the next page, we require 50% of the tract to stay in traditional agricultural production, so that would limit it to some degree. Combination of their footprint, and then the 50% has to stay in ag production. But again, what I've seen in the first proposal, 660,000 square foot of building, blacktop parking lot, or travel ways, access points, and then a big chunk of that 117 acre farm stays in ag production.
Yeah, well, I saw 20 acres. I was curious how many buildings could go on that 20
We
acres.
could bump that up more than 20 if that's what you all wanted.
I don't know what-
Again, Nelson County had a 100 acre and above requirement, and then below 100. So we'll keep rolling through this, and I'll finish up. 5 came right out of the Nelson County ordinance. It says they can't exceed 40,000 square foot footprint. The ones we have here are typically right at 20 or under, because when you get up to these bigger numbers, you triggered some other requirements of the building code. And the ones out here, they stay below that, so then they don't have to sprinkle them at all. So, and then this is, 6 is interesting. We required there to be a 500-foot setback from all property lines. The Nelson County was 200 foot, and I did run this by the distillery folks and EDP, and they'd like to see that stay at the 200 foot. The reason we made it 500 foot is we've used 500 foot for other things that aren't technically compatible in the ag zone. We've used 500 foot or 1,000 foot or good distances, again, to protect properties. The challenge we have here is we don't know what tracks these could be on. And there could be, again, someone living in their house on the 1 acre tract that's next to this 70 acre tract. We're gonna put these 6-story rick houses. In a sense, it's not their backyard, but it'll feel that way. I think having some kind of setback from the property line is reasonable. Now, an option could be, we've used language like you have to be X number of feet from a residential structure. So we could do that, as opposed to just a flat 500 feet. Like if it's farm to farm, then what do we care if it's 200 feet? But the Nelson County ordinance had 200-foot setback from all property lines. And that's what I think the folks in our community like to see in this draft. We bumped it up to 500 on the safe side, because there's, as you know, there's neighbors all over the county. We have tracks cut over all over the county. Something we can hear on both sides and go either direction, when we get there. The next one's 1,000-foot setback. So 7 seems strict, but we've used this in 2 other places in our zoning ordinance already. And when there's things like churches, daycares, we have schools out in the county, we have other things out in the county besides just houses and farms, we're requiring 1,000-foot setback. Again, I think the idea here is to deal with compatibility issues, and as Henry pointed out, if it's a problem, they can get a variance from the Board of Adjustments on that. They'll be there for a conditional use permit, they can ask for a variance at the same time if they can only achieve, let's say, 600-foot or 800-foot. We don't think that's unusual or too much. And if you turn the page, the last 2 items, again, as Jerry alluded to, we're requiring at least 50% of the property stay in agricultural use as defined by KRS 100.
Is that also in the Nelson County?
Theirs is 25%. So we bumped it up a little bit, and again, the industry folks here said no problem on that. Again, they're looking at about 1 brick house per 10 acres is kind of what the model shows, so it's easy to fall in that range. So that's the whole text amendment. And again, there are gonna be citizens in this community that are adamantly opposed to this idea, and there are some that support it. And then there's folks around town who really like tourism or economic development. I think this is, if this becomes our industry, in our community, and there's development opportunities here, as much flexibility as we can give to the industry, is what they're looking for. So this is how it fits in Article 5. Again, our recommendation would be, you guys, anything you want to discuss with Henry or I, but we recommend we table this item, so then you guys can get the public in here, hopefully in July or August, and discuss it.
Questions or discussion on anything that's been presented with regard to the zoning ordinance amendment?
Steve, was there any mechanism for live comment, remote during this, or?
No,
Okay.
not really,
Okay.
unless our IT guy saw them on YouTube or anything, but I don't think so today. That's why we really need to just let you guys study on this a month, come back in July. Hopefully, we may have to find another room. We're allowed to have groups of 50, starting on the 29th. I don't think we can social distance with 50 in here, so maybe we can find a gymnasium or inter-county where we know we can get, I don't think you're gonna have 50, but we have to assume there's a good
Yeah.
amount of public that wanna come here and talk to you guys about this.
Okay.
We need a motion to table?
Yes, sir.
Chair needs a motion to table.
So moved.
Jeff moves that we table.
Second.
And that, Wendy, was that you, please?
Yeah.
Wendy seconds. Question, discussion on the motion to table. Hearing none, all in favor? Vote unanimous. Thank you. And then item 4, LMD Holdings.
It's still there tabled. We've reached out to them every month. This is where we're at on progress, and they just don't, they have not gotten back to us. They were in town, the other day. I reached out to Dan Campbell, the realtor that was involved in the real estate sale. They didn't call us back. He said, well, I told him you want some direction one way or the other. So it's still
What, is that
tabled.
the
I brought this up with Henry. I'm not real happy that we just continually have a tabled item since January on the agenda every month.
Is that the distillery?
That's a distillery on 52.
Yeah.
We started the process, we didn't have conditions, and did not submit a general development plan, so we asked them to go back and work on one, and they made no progress on that. So, it's kind of stuck, although I'm leaning towards saying at some point, how do we pull it off the table and deal with it?
I gave it a look after we talked. I don't know that it would compromise them that much if we did just vote it down. There would be a recommendation then to the city, but I think there's something that says that if there's a final action, then they have to wait 12 months. Well, the city could just take no action on the recommendation.
Yeah, so what Henry's saying is we could pull it off the table and just, because we didn't get any kind of plan with it, we could just deny it, send that recommendation to the city. What I was hoping to do, the applicants would withdraw it, bring it back when they're ready, we'd credit the fees or whatnot. So maybe I could spend one more month reaching out to them and say, look, guys either need to get us something, or we're gonna take some action on it in July. I think they're moving that way. I think their focus is the farm right now. The property's been purchased, and they're working on the old house and the driveway and some trees, and I think right now that's just back burner of the zone
They can,
change.
they can withdraw it, and that won't be any,
That's what I've asked them to do. I asked them to send me an email or some correspondence to either withdraw.
and they
or-
won't lose any of their fees.
That's right. But they've yet to respond after now. I called in February, March, April, May, so. it's
Henry,
just-
could we not, as a commission, dismiss it due to lack of action, or is that a
I think we could, and I
procedure?
believe staff has even worked with them to the extent of saying, we would not charge you fees if you then brought it back after that. Really been extending yourselves, trying to work with them, and have just not had much feedback. But yes, we could do that. I think it's best not to do it now. I think it's
Okay.
best to give them some notice that that's
Sure.
the plan of action.
I think reach out to them one more time and see if they can withdraw or whatever, and then when they're ready to get their ducks in a row, come back.
Yep, I agree.
Okay. Would entertain a motion to table again until next meeting.
So moved.
Jeff moves we table. Vince seconds. Question, discussion on the motion to table. Hearing none, all in favor, vote unanimous. New business, Personnel Committee report. I'll give that, and then Steve may want to chime in on that. Personnel Committee met yesterday morning and went over Lisa's evaluation and went over Steve's evaluation. We told Steve when he showed up, bring his suitcase and his key, escort him out. No, I'm just kidding. But Steve has a copy of the evaluation that we put together. And if you want to see that, it's certainly available. He'd be glad to share it with you. Lisa's is also available. I'm gonna let Steve talk about Lisa's if he so chooses. But from our perspective, everything is in really good situation. Everybody's performing their duties really well. And I don't think we had any suggestions for any significant improvement other than to continue to do a good job and just do it better. But we as a committee, we're very pleased with Lisa and Steve's performance with regard to their jobs. And so that was basically the Personnel Committee meeting report. And Steve, anything you want to add to that?
Just, there's an item there about healthcare and dental options. We did
Yes, I
review
forgot
our
about that.
Next year, healthcare and dental options. We had a 2-month Band-Aid fix after the city terminated our policies on their self-funded plan and their Delta Dental plan. So we moved to KLC for 2 months, and that ends June 30th, so we had to go shopping for insurance again. Personnel, again, I don't know how many options were on there, probably 15 or 16
Bunch,
options.
yeah.
And picked our plan options, which basically is the cheapest premiums. It was the plan way on the right. And it is what it is. And we're moving forward with those 2 plan options with your all's approval, July 1.
Okay. Question, discussion on the health insurance?
Do we need to vote on that?
Yeah.
Yes, I think so.
Yeah,
I'll make a motion.
Jeff moves we approve the insurance plan as presented,
Second.
and I'm blank.
I have a question.
Rita seconds. I was thinking Lisa, and I said, it's not Lisa, it's Rita. Couldn't get it. Rita seconds, thank you. I told Lisa earlier, I said, sometimes our computer won't pull it up, so.
Turn them all in.
Are we,
You're right.
we pay, when they, city pulls you off of theirs, I mean, are we having to pay more for it now?
Yes.
It's about $100.
About $100 more, and the
Yeah.
dental's actually.
Are you all having to pay more for it?
No, the planning commission provides 100% single coverage.
That's fine, okay.
Any policy options above that, the employee contributes
Okay.
all those amounts, so. the
So
planning
we're just
commission
paying more for it?
Single plan went up $98 a
Okay.
month, which is probably $200 a month. Dental went down a couple dollars.
Any other questions, discussion? Hearing none, we had a motion by Jeff to approve, Rita second. Question, discussion on the motion to approve the health care plan as presented. Hearing none, all in favor, vote unanimous. Thank you. Budget Committee report, Terry, you have that, or?
Yeah, well, we want to talk about adopting the fiscal year 21 budget. So if you pull out the budget that was included in your packet,
I'm gonna just talk directly from this sheet, and we're just gonna talk about the right two columns. The first one being the fiscal year 21 preliminary budget, which you approved a couple months ago, and then the one on the furthest right, which is the budget that we're proposing for adoption over this year. Jeff and Wendy and I sat down with Steve, I guess it was last week, to review this. If you look at the far right column, any numbers that have changed from the preliminary budget that you approved a months ago are highlighted in yellow. I'm just gonna talk to the ones that are $1,000 change or more, not anything less than that. So if you start at line 1, you'll see our beginning balance, again, basically what we have in the bank when the year starts. As Steve said, it's up over 6 figures for the first time since he's been here. It was expected to be around 76,800 when we did the preliminary budget. Based on where the numbers are now, we're submitting the final budget, having it at a little about $103,000. That's a $26,000 increase since we did the preliminary budget. $15,000 of that is because we were proposing to give $15,000 back to the city and county because of our budget, our balance being so high. But since the city and county have decided not to fund us fully, we decided not to give the $15,000 back. And then
We'll show them, won't we?
And the other difference is just some higher fees. So that's the reason why we have a higher starting balance. Line 2 and 3 then are the city and county contribution. You can see how the cities is down 25,000, county is down 5, so that's a $30,000 reduction from the preliminary budget. Next line under the revenue is line 23. You can see that we've got, called the zoning permits from down from $25,000 in the preliminary budget down to $20,000. That compares to about $31,000 this year, so that's some conservatism, if you want to frankly say it. $20,000 is a little conservatism. Hopefully it'll be a little more than that. Next change is in line 15, which is the land use and recording fees. These are fees that we collect and then just pass through the county. And this year it's going to be close to $5,000. We had the preliminary budget at 2, so Steve increased it up to 4 to reflect it being closer to what we're seeing this year. And again, you'll see that basically being subtracted out down under expenses, but that's a pass-through number to the county. So line 19 is total revenue. So total revenue now is actually down $33,000 in the final budget proposal compared to the preliminary budget proposal, with again most of that being the reduced $30,000 reduced funding from the city and county. But then when you add back in our starting balance and look at where we think we would be, starting balance plus the revenue that we do expect to get, actually it's pretty close to what we had in the preliminary budget. We had $268,000 in the preliminary budget. The final budget is $261,000, or about a $7,000 decrease for all the reasons stated above. So any questions on revenue? Under commission expenditures, the first line we'll talk about is line 25. And we had $2,400 in the preliminary budget for an intern. Because of the reduced funding, we pulled that money out, so we have no budget in this year for an intern. The next line where there's more than $1,000 change is line 28, which is the health insurance that we just talked about. And to answer your question, Steve, you can see how it went up from about roughly $12,000 to a little over $14,000 in the budget since we were removed from the city healthcare plan. Next line with more than $1,000 change is line 42, and that's the pass-through back to the county for the land use and recording fees that we collect. And so that's, again, that's just a pass-through. And then under line 44, we had $1,000 in the preliminary budget to buy a new computer, I think for Steve. That has been pulled out of the budget. So if you go to the next page then, the next line where we've had more than $1,000 change is line 56, and that is the Bluegrass ADD. Those are the folks that keep our online maps current. We're only spending about $500 with them this year. We had $4,000 in the preliminary budget, so we pulled that down to $2,500, just expecting that we won't have that we'll have to spend more next year, perhaps than this year, but not as much as we had in the preliminary budget. So if you make all those changes, that takes us down to total expenditures on line 69. And you can see a preliminary budget, we had total expenditures of $199,000. Now it's about $198 roughly, so that's about a $1,300 reduction in total expenditures, so with the pluses and minuses that we've talked about above. And then line 70 is what we expect the ending, what the check, what the bank balance will be at the end of the year. And we had when we did the preliminary budget, we thought we would end the year next year with about $69,000 in the bank. With the changes that we've had, the final budget proposal that we've got this year has us at closer to $64,000 in the bank when it's all said and done. And if you then drop down the lines to 71 and 72, that's how the roughly $64,000 is distributed, with about roughly $16,000 being in the operating reserves, the 10% operating reserves that we carry, and then the rest being assigned to legal and construction reserves. So that's the final budget proposal that we have for 21. Any questions, Steve, or the staff, or myself?
I would just like to make one suggestion or question. As we go forward, and I know we review our budget, I don't know if it's quarterly or mid-year, maybe we could look at and see, if our revenues are better than what we are anticipating, we maybe re-look at his computer.
Oh.
I mean, that's a $1,000 expenditure, and I think it's in pretty bad shape, and maybe look at that.
Yeah, right.
And
Well, here's the thing, I've got a pretty old computer I'm using, but we had a computer for the third staff person. We bought new computers for Lisa and the other staff member. The intern was using, I moved that into my office, so I'm using computers new as Lisa's. But it's sort of a short-term fix, because the other computer, I'm using some programs on one and web editing on the other. Plan was to get a computer, 1,000 was just a benchmark. We probably could buy one a lot cheaper. But I think we're gonna be fine this year. I'm using that. If we had an intern there ever, another position out, we took that off another desktop. So, and I also want to mention, Terry's chair, but Wendy and Jeff serve on the budget committee and put a lot of work into this. And it's a tough year for us. The city did in their cut, 33% tell us if we have any problems, just let them know. All the commissioners affirmed that if we need, it's a tough cut this year, but if we run into problems, just let them know, and we'll do what they can to help us out. And I anticipate our numbers will go back to those normal appropriations once their numbers get back on track in the city and the county.
Okay. Any other questions or discussion with regard to the budget presentation? I too would like to say thanks, Terry and Jeff and Wendy, for your all's work on the budget, and think you're doing an excellent job. And
I came on the end, so I didn't do much.
well, except for Jeff, then, okay? But do appreciate your all's hard work on that. Thank you all so much for doing that, because it's something that's certainly needed. Anything else good for the order? Henry, anything else we need to?
A motion.
I'm sorry, we do. I'm sorry, I thought we'd pass. I apologize there. Motion to pass the budget proposal. Steve moves we approve. Rita seconds. I knew you did. I got it. Question, discussion on the motion to approve. Hearing none, all in favor? Vote unanimous. Thank you. Now, any other good for the order?
Briefly, a matter of
Henry?
public record, I had provided y'all an update about where the litigation was. We had the hearing. Briefs have now been submitted, and we're just waiting on the courthouse to come back with an order. And I wouldn't expect that before mid-July, but perhaps we will be surprised, and you'll know as soon as I know.
Thank
For
you.
the record, I got served yesterday.
I saw that. Yeah, congratulations.
Okay. Anything else, Henry or Steve, anyone? Hearing none, motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Jim moves, Vince seconds. All in favor, we are adjourned. Thank you all very much.
So they finally